I can let him in.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, good morning.
Julie,
Hi.
Robert.
Hey, Aaron.
Morning, all.
Dylan's here. How's everyone's morning been?
Outstanding.
Oh, that's a good response.
Yeah, good. Started with an Austrade meeting with the team in San Francisco, so that was fun.
Oh, awesome. Who are you dealing with there?
Sunil and Mara, I believe.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I got a couple more dialing in.
Dylan, it looks like you're hosting a radio show.
Hi everyone, good morning. It's Ilta.
Hi, Ilta. Nice to meet you.
Hey, John.
Morning.
Great. Well, I've got a couple more. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for being on time. There's just for context, a bit of a mixed group. So many of you are already registered for the mission, but also in the group are some that are considering or just curious and want to find out more as well. So it is a bit of a mixed bag. We have another 15 who were planning on joining the call, again, in a mix of a lot of people who are more interested than actually registered yet. But we'll kick off. I am recording this session, so for those that can't make it, or if you want to relive any part of it for whatever reason, you can go back to it as well. So I'll share that afterwards. The purpose of today is twofold. For those of you that are interested in the mission, finding out more and curious about the US, we'll talk a little bit about what it is and why we do it. And for those of you that are already registered, it's going to be a bit more of a meet and greet, Q&A, run through the logistics, what to expect, and action items. So if you do need to jump at any point, totally understand. I know we're all busy and we've got our businesses and everything else to be running. So, and please interrupt at any time. So if you have any questions at all, like either drop them in the chat, just unmute. We're very informal. So, but to kick off, I do have some slides to speak through, which I'm going to use especially for those that might be watching the recording. So just bear with me 1 second. As my Zoom is asking for all sorts of permissions again. Here we go. And of course, it's moved everything and everyone, but there we go. All right. So yes, our first session before the mission, for those of you that are registered, we have a couple of other catch-ups before we depart, which will be more into the nitty-gritty of understanding the US market, how to adjust your communications and messaging when you're there. Because even though we speak English and we love our sport and beer and all the other analogies, and we tend to elect very random politicians as our leaders, despite all those commonalities, we actually construct our sentences and the way we talk very differently. So in one of the sessions, we'll help you get ready for how to speak American and how to pitch and how to get your elevator pitch right for when you're in market. We'll also run through a bit more time together so we get to know each other before we're on ground, because obviously one of the key things you'll take away from the mission is actually the cohort itself and the connections to each other. But where I'm going to kick off today is a little bit about us at Tribe and why we do these missions. So we are a venture capital firm. We're based here in Australia. We have teams spread across Brisbane and Adelaide, as well as venture partners kind of scattered around Australia and the rest of the world. Our focus is on Australian and New Zealand B2B tech companies. We invest typically around pre-Series A, Series A, and we're really focused on tech companies that are scaling or looking to scale into the US and UK markets. Now, the reason for all of that, we think it's a bit of an investment sweet spot. My co-founder, Don, and I have both built B2B tech businesses before. We've built them into the UK and US before. We've had exits, we've had failures. It's just something we know, and it's also where our network is as well. So that's a little bit about us. We run these missions to the UK and US each year. So we head to London in June, and we doing the US in March, obviously. UK mission is a little bit different. We're just centered in London. It's very much focused on market entry, understanding the UK and broader European opportunity. The US mission, particularly because we go to Silicon Valley, has another dimension to it. So as well as understanding for the founders the US market entry piece, it's also an opportunity to see the latest tech, to see the latest industry trends, to also get an understanding that for any of you who've spent time doing business in the US, you'll appreciate this comment. Doing business in America, it's not just one country essentially. Like it's like entering 50 plus different countries, and even down on a city level, it's quite unique. So with the US mission, we always do a 2-city comparison for that reason. So on this one, we're going into San Francisco for half the week and then into Denver in Colorado for half the week. And we'll talk about nuts and bolts of why we do that. In terms of who leads these missions, so Don and myself will be on ground. So Don and I are the co-founders of Tribe. Little background on Don. He's built a business through to public listing in Australia. That was an insurance tech company that's had a global footprint. He's also a very active member of Brisbane Angels. There's 30 plus personal kind of private investments he's made outside and distinct from the work he does at Tribe as well. He also manages a family office with about 230, 250 million in assets under management across an entire portfolio of different asset classes. Myself, so tech entrepreneur, sold my software company in 2012, did an IoT hardware startup in 2013 that I got lucky on pretty quickly, sold that. And then since then, I've been running different accelerator programs and a lot of these international trips. And it was on the back of that started Tribe and dragged Don in. Maren, for her sins, as well as being part of Tribe, is also my wife. Maren looks after the mission scheduling, logistics, passenger onboarding, making us look awesome when we're in the US and connecting all the speakers to all the events and everything else. Maren also is part of SheMaps, which is a STEM education provider here in Australia. So she heads up their marketing and Australian operations for selling that into schools and getting more, particularly female participation into STEM. We're also, just for context, so we've done a lot of these before. So I've run something like 30 plus trade missions into different markets. With Tribe, we're very much focused on UK, US, but previously I've run these missions kind of all across Europe, Israel, into Asia and elsewhere. We're also supported by an amazing venture partner network. So when we're over in the US, we'll be joined by Jason Seed. Jason was I think he was actually the original New South Wales Trade Commissioner based in Silicon Valley. He's helped many tech companies go over and scale into the US and kind of works as kind of like a virtual COO and also sometimes CEO of different tech companies and has helped them scale. He's an Aussie, but he's been in Silicon Valley for 17 plus years. I can't remember exactly how long. Also over in the US, we have Vicky Forrest. So she is the current Queensland Trade Commissioner over in San Francisco. I've known Vicky a long time. She was the head of ANZA for close to 20 years, helping tech companies scale out of Australia into the US. She also, before that, was actually part of a startup that flipped up from Australia to the US. She raised capital in the US market. So she's got firsthand experience. She's helped a couple of hundred founders on the same journey and now lives and breathes it as the Trade Commissioner. And then we have similar venture partners over in the UK and then spread across Australia. And they all kind of chip in and help with missions and portfolio support. Who are the missions for? So hopefully you've already self-selected in. So we focus on these three categories. So it's a mix of founders, investors, and what we call like ecosystem leaders. So the focus on founders, you'll pick up that we're very focused on B2B. We do open the missions up more broadly, but a lot of the speakers that we get in during the week are themselves, Aussie expats in market or investors in market who have experience investing both sides of the ditch, and they tend to have a B2B focus. But the mission, we've taken a lot of B2C. We've taken a variety of different types of industry sectors, like we're sector agnostic. We just try and always make sure that it is a fit for the market that we're going to. On the investor side, it's a little bit different. So for investors, the pitch is to understand what great looks like. And to go and see how founders in different markets operate, how to identify what we should be investing in here in Australia of relevance to those markets, and also to learn best practice from our overseas investor counterparts. So, I've been on 20 plus of these types of trips over to Silicon Valley in the last 15 years. And every time I go, I take away some new insight or some new way of looking at how we invest. And so for investors, it is kind of looking at those trends, the investment learnings, but also the latest tech. And it is a layer that Silicon Valley offers that the London mission just doesn't, is that exposure to the latest, like bleeding edge technology. And then the last piece are ecosystem leaders. So these running, they might be running accelerators, different startup community groups. We love taking them over to market because they have a multiplier effect. So they come back and, to put it bluntly and frankly, and maybe show my biases, completely change how they're talking and teaching founders to do their business over here. Just one thing on stage of company. So we've taken everyone from pre-revenue stage, even pre-MVP, right through to kind of Series B stage companies. So I think it was a London mission last year, for example. We had everyone from pre-revenue, pre-investment, right through to kind of 12 mil ARR. So anywhere on that spectrum is a fit. There is no sweet spot of when is the best time. My view is you can never go early enough, because it will completely change how you actually build out your entire business, not just your global expansion piece, but even your domestic business. What can you expect? So a little bit of expectation setting for those of you joining us over there. What is it? What will you realistically get out of the mission, and what won't you get out of it? So just in terms of what we cover and the types of questions you can expect to answer. So there's a lot on this slide. Don't particularly have to read it, but you'll definitely get an understanding of, is this market for me? If so, when is the right time for me to be scaling into this market? And even then, where in this market should I be scaling into? Like, where's my beachhead? Where should I be landing? You'll understand the dynamics of your customers, what customers in the US market are looking for, how to speak to them, how to be heard, but how to be considered. The US is quite an interesting market. For those of you who spend time there, you'd know that it's highlighted with their baseball, right? Like the World Series is purely America. They actually don't really understand on a business sense how the world operates outside the US. And we get that feedback. Like, you'll hear from the Aussie founders that when they go in and talk to US companies and they start talking about, Telstra, BHP, you name it, the big logos of Australia, it's almost like they have zero relevance in the US. And so learning these little insights of how to speak to your US potential customers so that you'll actually be heard, and then building your go-to-market model around that, understanding what US investors are looking for, how they look at deal flow. For the investors in the group, it's also understanding the mechanics of their process. How do they actually assess deals? How do they source deal flow? How do they manage deals post-investment as well? We talk a lot about operational aspects. So this is one thing I don't think is covered enough for founders, but how do you actually structurally go about setting up business in the US or in another market versus Australia? How do you manage investors if they're across markets, and what investors in the US might want versus investors in Australia, and how do you manage that? Where does the IP sit? How do you still access grants in different markets if those grants are very much based on you being domiciled in one location? All this sort of stuff, down to the nitty-gritty of tax, accounting, HR, visas, employment, you name it, it kind of gets covered off during the week. We answer questions around tech. So a big focus of the week is around AI, and how do you make sure your startup is relevant and stays relevant and has a durable competitive advantage, because the technology stack is changing so quickly. And then obviously plugging into the networks that can help. So that's a broad brushstrokes on kind of the focus. In terms of outcomes that founders kind of report, so we do get all of our delegates to complete pre and post mission surveys, so we get to track the impact. The key ones are, participants on these missions tend to go on to grow revenue faster, raise more capital, expand into international markets faster. But probably the big one for us is better capital efficiency. One of the biggest cost factors of scaling into a new market is the mistakes that cost you significant amounts of money and significant amount of time. And it's hard to undo those things once they're in motion. So more than anything else, we try and circumvent the common mistakes that where it commonly goes wrong. There's some stuff in here. I'll skip these ones. What you won't get out of the week. So just to be realistic, you're not going to go over there and in 1 week get a US investor put money into your company. You're unlikely to secure a customer within the week or secure a contract. You're unlikely to secure a distribution partner or a channel partner during the week. All of those things take time. But absolutely every mission we take over, the participants do get those introductions that ultimately do lead to contracts. They just take time to form. So probably the biggest contract one of our delegates has landed took 18 months post the mission to land. Others are much faster. That was quite a significant kind of tens of $millions worth of contract. But it's unrealistic to expect these things just to fall and happen in the week. And hopefully that's stating the obvious. I will say as well, it depends entirely on you. So we can open the doors, we can get you into the rooms, we can make the connections, but ultimately you have to do the work. So, and we'll talk about that more as we get closer to the mission of how to get the most out of it. What it will do is basically give you a new mental model. So even for Don and I, our last US mission was in October, and we refer to kind of our VC timeline so far as pre-US mission and post that mission. That mission completely changed the way we're looking at deals, the way we're approaching our investments. It gave us a new mental model for understanding AI. So how we go about making decisions on AI companies and also other companies. It will change your Australian business. So even if you go over to the US and realize this market's not for me, you'll gain insights into how the founders we're putting you in front of have built their businesses to scale, and you'll naturally come back and apply them locally. So as much as this is about the US market, there'll be lots of insights you come back and just apply to BAU, and your strategy will likely change as well. But one of the key ones is the cohort. So often we see delegates within the group actually doing deals between themselves or new partnerships or contracts within the group, but also separate to that is just the peer-to-peer learning and the connection that comes from these missions. So I'm sure you've all experienced this. There's nothing like spending a week with other people who are on the same journey as you and really diving deep into your businesses, getting to know each other, and they become that group you can call at 3 a.m. when the wheels are falling off and you're having that ridiculous issue and no one understands you except for the people who are on the same journey. So you will build that network effect as well. What else to go through? So I'm going to stop talking now. And I appreciate this is very much one way at the moment, but I'm going to get Maren to do a quick overview of the schedule and some of the logistics stuff as well.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think Aaron introduced me well enough. I'm the global mission lead here at Tribe, and it's great to see you all in person. Some of you received emails from me already, so it's good to make that personal connection. Yeah, this is my 6th market exploration trip that I'm planning for Tribe. And yeah, everything Aaron said, 100%. Take everything on board that's been covered so far. I guess one thing to add is every year we keep refining the missions and we take on the feedback from participants and really push ourselves to create a better mission every single time. So I'll give you a bit of a run through of the schedule without going into too much granular detail. For those that have already signed up for the mission, the details will definitely come. But just to give you an overview, what we've got planned for that week. So we always kick off a mission on a Sunday, and that gives us time to really connect as a group before we start a busy mission week. So we will have a chance to get to know each other in person. We would have all spent time on Zoom calls already, but it's great to break the ice in person. Then the following 3 days in San Francisco are designed to really help you understand that US market opportunity on a greater scale. We do have a session with Austrade, for example. We have Vicky Forrest, our venture partner over in San Francisco talk about the differences between a large scale market like the US versus a small market like Australia. So we really want to highlight what may be some of the challenges that an Australian may be facing expanding over to the US. And we also do that by putting fellow Aussie founders in front of you who have successfully expanded into the US already, and we encourage them to be very blunt and honest to share what was their biggest lessons learned, so that you can learn from those mistakes. In those days, we will also hear about the practicalities of setting up business in the US. What does it take in terms of legal considerations? What do you need to consider in terms of the taxes across the different states, IP law, employment decisions, and so forth. Then we'll be spending one day in the Valley. We'll be meeting Silicon Valley Bank. We'll be hearing more about how banking and loans work in the US. We'll be visiting the Stanford Entrepreneurs Program, and we'll be pitching to the investment team at Plug and Play. So that's going to be a fun adventure in the Valley. We also have a morning with a venture capital firm in San Francisco to help you understand the investment landscape in the US. What are US investors looking for, and how are they making decisions in the current climate? Then on Wednesday night, we'll jump on a plane, head over to Denver, and then we have 2 full days in Denver and a departure day. So in Denver, similar to San Francisco, we hear more about the US in general. In Denver, we want you to understand why is Denver such a thriving ecosystem and such a popular place for Australian and New Zealand founders. And again, we'll put you in front of Aussie founders that have made Denver their US base, and they will share with you why that is the case. You will again have the opportunity to pitch to local investors. And, as Aaron said, this is not to pitch for money. It's really all about getting feedback about your value proposition, seeing how your pitch sticks with a US audience, and start building those relationships in the local ecosystem. One cool thing in Denver is that we will hear from an AI expert from Anthropics to hear about where is AI headed and how may that change the way we do business in the next 12 to 24 months. And that in particular has been incredibly valuable for past participants, really that opportunity to look beyond the curve and see the horizon of what's out there in the tech space. And that has been really valuable for both founders and investors, because it allowed them to then make changes to their business in Australia or to their investment thesis that they would have not otherwise made. I should also say, whilst that is, quite a full schedule, we will have time both in San Francisco and in Denver for you to have personal meetings with potential customers, potential partners, potential investors, etc. So really use the time in preparation of this mission to line up those opportunities. Sort of do your research and understand sort of the key stakeholders in your industry. Who do you want to meet with over there? Because time will be scarce, but it's really important to use that time as valuably as you can. I think that's kind of a bit of an overview of the schedule there.
Yeah, one thing I'll just add on that. So in terms of who we get to present sessions, as much as possible, a lot of Aussie founders who are there doing it or have done it. And as I said before, like even on the investor side, we try to find Aussie investors who are based there now, or investors who have experience investing both sides, or investing into Aussie companies as well. We have a couple of kind of metrics around the presentations and the talks and the things that we're in. Number one, we try not to have any sessions where you could just YouTube the answer from home. So it's kind of our metric is that these have to be sessions that are interactive, that are personalized, that go deep into the nuts and bolts of how. So we believe every founder knows what they need to do. They just need help with the how. And so we really focus in those sessions around that. And equally, all the delegates are kind of given a briefing on don't ask a question that you can Google the answer to. We really want to go much deeper in these sessions. Maren, I can jump ahead to the logistics slide if you want to speak through that one.
Yeah, so for logistics, we start the mission at 3 p.m. on Sunday, the 23rd of March in San Francisco. Your hotel rooms are already booked for when you arrive. We finish the mission at 10 o'clock on Saturday, the 29th of March in Denver. So when you book your flights, just make sure you have those dates and those locations on the radar. Accommodation is twin share unless you upgrade. If you do want to upgrade, just let us know and we can organize that for you. Equally, if you want to stay at the hotel, if you want to arrive at San Francisco a few days earlier, you want to stay in Denver a little bit longer, that's no problem at all. You've got the details for the hotels and you can make those arrangements as you like. Weather is definitely a bit chillier than Brisbane right now. San Francisco a little bit milder, but for Denver it's definitely advised to pack some warmer clothes. And in terms of sort of the business attire, very similar to what we wear here in Australia. Business casual is always a safe bet. There's going to be a couple of dinners and networking events where you want to be, smart casual, maybe something a little bit more dressed up than a t-shirt and jeans. But yeah, the rest is quite casual. The internal flight from San Francisco to Denver on Wednesday night is included, so we will book all of that internally. But we ask that you only bring one bag of checked-in luggage because of that inland flight. So it's especially for those that want to stay longer in the US, just keep that in mind. I mean, if you had 2 luggage items, you could, you might just have to pay for that second item, but it might make it easier just to stick to one. And those pre-mission workshops should all be in your calendar now. If they're not, please let me know, and I'll send the calendar invite across. And yeah, great opportunity to attend those, so make the most of that as well.
Awesome. There are some action items for those of you already registered, but we might leave that for the end. I think we got kind of go into more of a discussion of the actual mission. So I'm going to stop sharing there. My screen is all reconfigured. Great. I think I'm happy to open it up at this point for any questions. Just as we do that, just want to also say, I'm not sure if any of you have been on trade missions or trade delegations before. The feedback we consistently hear is ours are very different, and I think everyone says that, but I believe it. This isn't something where we're all going over to attend a conference together. Like this, we deliberately curate the schedule around the individuals we're taking. And even though Maren's run through that schedule, we completely change it based on who's registered. So one of the next steps for us is arranging 30-minute deep dives with each of you that are attending to understand exactly what you're looking to get out of the trip, where you're at, what you're struggling with, what you need help with, so that we can design that into the schedule. The other thing is we don't do the tech tourism piece. So even though we might be driving past the Facebook sign and the Google campus and all those sort of things, we don't do the tech tourism that a lot of the others do. There's plenty of time you can take to do that afterwards if that's your thing. And the other thing is we have quite a busy schedule. So we tend to operate kind of meeting in the hotel foyer at kind of 7:30 in the morning, do the daily briefing, and we move as a group for most of the time and often don't get back until kind of the late hours of the night because inevitably there's always some sort of networking event or something going on. When we're on the ground, the style Don and I have is very much, if we need to stop the bus and have a 30-minute session on a topic or unpack something, we do that. We really want to make sure everyone's getting value out of the week. Any questions about the mission, who it's for, if you're a fit, logistics?
I've just got one question, sorry guys. Maybe two, sorry. Um, you do have to be a Tribe Global VC portfolio company to join this program. Okay. Yep.
No, so we've on this one we should have two or three portcos joining us, but no, we open it up. We do it because we think the ecosystem needs it, but for us as well as investors, it gives us a chance to get to know founders long before they're raising capital at our stage as well. But no, it's open to anyone.
Yeah, awesome. Just secondly, I guess, in terms of fees and costs, is that maybe a different separate conversation, but
Yeah.
Yeah, that as well. Yep.
Yeah, happy to go through that. So the price is $7,990, which includes the week, the hotels, the internal flight. The only thing you've got to add on top of that is your international flights there and back. There is an extra charge if you do want to upgrade to a private room. We do twin share in the US, partly to save costs because it's a bit more expensive than the UK. But also, what we find is the founders actually get to the end of the day, they've processed so much information, like they need someone to talk to. So the twin share ends up creating this nice bond where they can get it all out of their head so they can actually sleep. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good to know.
But Maren can also send through all those details afterwards. Yeah.
Awesome.
And we get asked a lot, like, when is it too early to come onto those missions? And our response is usually like, it's never too early if you have traction in Australia, it's never too early to see what's happening over in the US and what opportunities do exist. So
Yep.
any company, any stage, any industry,
Yep.
take.
Yeah, I mean, I guess also just one last question on that. Like, we're already in the US market we launched there about 18 months ago, and it's, by far our fastest growing market, which is great. But we don't have anyone on the ground at the moment, so we've just been doing things fairly organically or from here in Sydney. And but now we're sort of like at that sort of second phase of our go-to-market, and then, like, what does that look like for us? And, who do we need, or if at all need anyone on the ground, and, what's that role, location? And, I guess like that's so my question there being like, it's not just for anyone who hasn't yet expanded to US, but we've already been there, but we're thinking about scaling up or how we can do that in the US. So
yeah, that's very common. So our US mission in October was probably about 40% of the delegates were already doing business in the US. And they all actually took an extra week at the end to go and catch up with those clients and form new partnerships. So yeah, I actually think that's a really good time because you've already got that awareness, those insights. Yeah.
And you get that exposure to both ecosystems as well. Whilst the San Francisco's that hustle and bustle, and the deals often happen there, but it might not be the most family friendly place to move to if a founder is considering to relocate, or lifestyle very much plays an important part as well. So one of the reasons that Denver is so popular is actually 60% of foreign direct investment of Denver comes from Australia and New Zealand, meaning that's how many founders have settled in Denver. And so the ecosystem there is not just thriving in general, but super supportive. And there's lots of fellow Aussies and Kiwis over there.
And a much better place to live.
Much better culture.
Yeah.
I was getting advised by one of my US advisors to move to Boulder, actually, and this Tribe Global trip came up. So it's such a coincidence, and I'm really glad to be joining. And I think both Aaron and Maren, you've presented it well today. So all my questions have been answered. Thanks.
Awesome. Great.
Awesome.
That's good to hear.
Awesome.
For me, I guess you guys don't know me from a bar of soap. Dylan does. It'd be worth somebody reaching out to have a chat just so that we can see if this is going to fit for me. I suspect that it's kind of borderline as to whether I fit this or not. I won't bore everybody with what I'm up to, but suffice to say, I've got a different exposure to a lot of these markets already with what I'm doing. So, as much as everybody says they're different, I'm probably different.
No, that's good, Glenn. I'm happy to jump on a call if you like. We can have a chat. See if
Yeah,
there's
I don't know what your position like today. I've got something at 2, and then
yeah.
but I'm kind of around. I
Okay.
don't think I'm far from you guys. You're in the Grange, are you?
Yeah, so we're an entirely remote team, but I'll actually be in the city, I think at 2. But yeah, I'll give you a call.
Right. Well, I'm in Stafford, so
Oh, great.
my office is here in Stafford. So
Yeah,
I've got
perfect.
something on site here at Stafford too, and then yeah, I'll be in the city at around 5.
Yeah, okay. You're just around the corner. All right, sweet. I'll connect with you after. I'll grab your email and yeah, I'll shoot you a text.
Yes.
Well, yeah, sorry. One thing I didn't go through, just the composition of this cohort on this trip. So we have a couple of investors confirmed. So John, who was on the call earlier, he invests through Tribe. He manages a family office. He'll be there. We have another investor who he'll be coming representing his own family office. On the other investment side, Don and I will obviously be leading the trip. Then we have a mix of founders from different stage companies. So we have at least two of our portcos, maybe a third portco joining. So they're a mixed bag of industries. So one's tech in hospitality, one is in mining and resource sector or heavy industry. One is in actually the other one's in natural resources. So and then Julie and Dylan joining as well. So it should be a good mix of founders. There's probably another, looking at the list, there's like 15 others that are talking about but haven't 100% confirmed yet. So for context for the US, we like to keep it a small group, typically kind of 10 to 14, because just some of the meetings, that's when we can get access like to the right people. And it also means that, I mean, for example, the talk from Anthropic, what they can share with us is much more of the kind of secret squirrel stuff of what they're building. Whereas if it's too big a group, we just, the speakers don't tend to open up as much. London's very different. London, we can take up to 40 people. It's much easier to move around the tube and get into different events and different speakers. Any other questions before we kind of wrap up?
Can I coordinate one-on-one? Because I'd love to be able to share a little bit of the direction and the things that we're wanting to achieve. And because I'm trying to set up other meetings around the two ends to bookend the trip. So that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that happens from here is we set up some one-on-one calls. So those of you that are confirmed to be coming along. So Maren will find out exactly that, like what do you want to get out of the mission? And so that we can help as much as possible. For those of you who are considering staying on, I definitely recommend doing it the week after rather than before, partly because you'll be a different person by the end of the week, and what you want to get out of those meetings will be totally different. And plus, you'll meet people during the week that you want to have that time for the follow-up with afterwards. Cool.
It'll start out on as a full North America trip for me, and we're ending up in Montreal mid-April. So
yeah, great
way to start out.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
We had like 3 delegates from the last one who I think it was like 3 months later before they actually came back. They just had open-ended returns. But no, that's good, Dylan. That's awesome.
Hey, I just wanted to chime in and say thanks so much for the intro and the overview. It's amazing. I've been watching a lot of your content and following you aggressively. You're spot on about Americans. Fucking sebos, they're terrible. But you're definitely doing amazing things for the ecosystem and supporting Aussie founders. So hats off to you. I wish you a successful trip. I'm doing something in parallel, so I'd love to circle back at another time when your plate's a little less full. So thank you for sharing, and thank you and Maren and Don, obviously, for everything you guys do for Aussie founders and the ecosystem as a whole. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. Yeah, I probably should have checked if there was any local Americans on the call before I.
That's all right. It's all good, man. I've been here for 25 years, although I go back and forth, and I've worked with a number of VCs in the Valley and stuff. So No, you're spot on, and you're doing great things. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to connect. That'd be great.
But that's the thing. We actually have a fellow American in the group who's coming over.
Yeah.
He's a founder here in Australia, but still coming on the mission, although he's a native American, because yeah, you just need to see it from a different lens, and it's all about the connections and being there in person. I think that's what you can't beat. You can't do it on Zoom. You can't do this stuff online. Nothing beats a personal handshake and being able to meet with someone in a coffee shop and building those relationships personally. So yeah, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's all insights and interesting and eye-opening.
Well, you already know you're doing great things. But for those of you that are on the fence, I mean, a lot of what your agenda, your key takeaways, and what you're doing is spot on. So even if whoever's kind of on the fence, man, do it, because this is an awesome opportunity. And like Aaron says, it will change your perspective and your business significantly. So, good on you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will likely also, I forgot to say, so some of our portcos have already scaled into the UK. The chair of the board of one of our portcos might be joining us from the UK. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. Sometimes we get internationals coming and join, even though this is very much an Australian kind of focused trip going over, we often get internationals joining from different places. Great. Well, if there's nothing further on this one, we might call it a wrap. Mara and I are happy to stay on and answer any individual questions, or Julie, Dylan, given you're confirmed, we can go through anything else you guys want to cover as well. But I'll respect everyone's time. We'll stop the recording there and go about our days. Thanks everyone for dialing in. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers. Thank you.